Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I will beam your ears to a different part of the world to share a story of how somebody is leveraging technology to solve real-world problems. And today's guest messaged me and shared his very personal origin story and asked if he could come on the podcast. And I found his story, which began in Pakistan with a curious mind that would then take him to England, where he would achieve great success as a startup founder. I found that to be incredibly inspiring. So today I want to learn more about that story and also the story behind Splittrip, which is a UK-based road trip sharing app for verified university students. And I also want to learn more about how they got officially endorsed by Coventry University. So we've got so much to talk about today, so buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to London, England, where you can join me and Abdul in conversation right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
First of all, hello and good day to Neil and the listeners. My name is Abdul Moiz Janjua, and I'm the founder of Splittrip. It is a multi-day road trip sharing application for verified university students.
When I first heard about you, I read that you're endorsed by Coventry University, and I used to work at the Birmingham NEC, so we must have been very, very close, just a few miles away from each other during that time. But before we find out more about that and about Splittrip, can I ask you to share your origin story and the moment that something might have sparked that passion for tech in you, or just something that put you on the path that you're on today?
It's a very interesting question that you have asked, because not a lot of people are interested in the origin story. They are interested in the end results. Yeah. So I would start with that. I grew up in a country called Pakistan, where I had my early education before I moved to the UK when I was 23. I had interest in computers for as long as I can remember. My grandfather got me a computer when I was 8 or 9 years old. And at that time, it was like back in 2003, 2004. And a computer in Pakistan was a very unique thing. And so I thank my grandfather to introduce me to the tech side of the world. And having the computer, like, instantly got me curious about how things work in the computer rather than playing games or just using it for entertainment. I was curious of how to build these websites, how these applications work. And since then, I have been very interested in learning about how the PC world works. So I was building websites when I was 14 years old. I remember building my first public website. Public, by public, I mean that the other people can see it as well. Was when I was 16, which was a college, my college gossip blog and news website, which got really popular, and that got me into thinking that how much powerful internet is, that it connects people so instantaneously, and you can get your message across to people. And then after that, I started building some applications, some iOS games, and etc. And that got me through college. And then it hit me that I was very interested in pursuing my career as a freelance designer. So I worked as a freelance designer for a couple of years while I was still studying in university. And then I moved to UK. And that is another chapter of my world where I started learning about how startup culture works, how startups are in the world, and how people are able to articulate or envision an idea and then grow from there into a full-fledged company. So yeah, that's where the idea of Splittrip was born after I came to the UK.
What a great story. And the reason that I always ask the origin story there is I think all too often, if we look at, especially at mainstream media, you'll see that they always focus on those at the summit of the mountain, celebrating their success, where the learning, that all comes at the climb up that mountain. What you just mentioned there about thinking about how things work around technology led you to freelance design and also startup culture, which would then lead you to the idea behind Splittrip. It's so important, isn't it, we share these stories?
Yes, absolutely, because you said it like perfectly, that it's not only about the summit, it's about the journey that you get, that gets you to the summit. And realizing that when I was very young in my career, I always wanted to have this idea of owning a business or solving problem for other people. That is the part that most of the people skip, and they just think that coming to the UK and starting a business is like an easy job, like you can do it in 2 days, which is not possible, of course.
Yeah, and it was that journey, that path
Absolutely.
that would lead you to Splittrip, which is, as you said at the very beginning, a road trip sharing app for verified university students. But can you tell me more about the story behind the company and the problems that you set out to solve from the outset?
Yeah. So again, continuing from the story, that I moved to the UK in 2017 for my master's degree, and now I already have a few years of design experience. I understand application culture and etc. But when I moved to the UK, it was not necessarily only to study, but it was to explore the country, explore the different parts of the world, travel around, and that got me to a realization that there were so many gaps in the traveling industry in the UK. So, for example, the public transport in the UK is designed for solo or essential travel. So it's not the most efficient or fun or cheap way to travel in the UK, believe it or not. That we got to the realization when me and my friend, his name is Umar, were on a 10 days road trip to Scotland. And we realized that if we were taking the trip via train, it would have cost us a fortune, or if we were, and we won't be able to see the gem of the country, which are like in the remote areas of Scotland. And we booked Airbnbs because they were much cheaper than booking solo rooms for us in a hotel. And when we were on a trip, we realized that we have extra rooms in our Airbnb, and we have extra seats in our cars because we were not able to fill up those extra seats with other friends because they already went back to their countries and got busy with their life. And we were thinking that there should be a platform where we can find other people who are interested in joining the trip with us. That would literally cut our traveling cost in half. And as students, you're trying to save money, save a penny even if you can. So saving like 1,700 quids, half of 1,700 quids was a big deal for us. Yeah. And that is where the idea of Splittrip was born, that there should be a platform where, or an application where people can advertise where they're going on a trip, and on the vice versa, on the other side of the trip, and that riders who are interested in going to trips can scan their area, see who and where they are going from their area, and join them in the trip and split the fuel cost. Now, this not only just is economical, but it is environmental as well, because you're using the resources to the best of their abilities, and you're making the life better for literally everyone.
It's such a great idea. And let's imagine I'm going to the Glastonbury Festival or the Reading Festival. Reading Festival's coming up in August, isn't it? So let's say I'm going to the Reading Festival and I'm looking at using the app. Can you walk me through how it works?
Absolutely. So the Splittrip application has two sides. I will ask you a question before I begin. Do you have a car?
I don't, but my wife does.
So you can split the trip with her, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, jokes aside, that's a beautiful answer. So, okay, so I do understand your demographics. So your wife is on one side and you are on the other side. I will explain how. So Splittrip, there are two sides of Splittrip. Number one is the driver side, where users who have a vehicle can calculate their trip cost and they plan their journey on the application. And once they have planned it, they can see how much the trip will cost them and share that trip on our platform for other people to see. Yeah. And that can save up to 75% of the fuel cost to them. And the other side of the Splittrip is the rider side, where, for example, if your wife has published a trip, the people around in the area can see, like, this person is going to this event or this beach or this safari park, and they can see that you're going on the trip and this is how much it will cost them. And they can literally join you on the trip and split the fuel cost. So you will be, if you're going by car, what you can do is you can advertise your trip on the platform. And let's suppose it was going to cost you, let's say 40 quids to get to where you from where you are to where you're from, and back to your location. And you can literally split that trip with some other person who is interested in the similar trip, but he was thinking to go by train or go by other means of transport. Now he can join you and save the trip cost. I will just give you a quick example of a trip from London to Manchester cost 44 quids in train, by train. Yeah. And if you do the similar journey in a small hatchback, it will cost you 40 quids. Now, 40 quids sounds a lot when you're driving yourself. But if you join in by 3 other individuals who are going to split the cost with you, now it's 25% of the total cost. So the same trip that would cost you 40 quids by train now is costing you 10 quids. And that makes a huge difference in for people who are struggling with the rising fuel costs, who are struggling with the availability of a vehicle to themselves. So that is the area that we are most excited about, and solving those problems for those individuals.
Yeah, and especially if you're traveling at peak work hours, I know those prices for trains can go up to over £100. It can rise easily, very quickly. And
yes, for very easily.
Yeah, for people listening, they might be thinking, this is a great idea, but then obviously the cynical side might take over and say, but what about the security concerns that they might be thinking about? And by that, I mean, one example could be a lone female getting in a car with two males, for example. So how do you get around security concerns with things like that?
Yes, this is one of the most important questions about the ride sharing, that literally when I did interviews with over 150 people in my university, and the number one, without a shadow of a doubt, the number one concern that people had was the security and safety of themselves. And this was a top concern, and especially to someone when they are sharing the accommodation. Now you can imagine going on a car ride, you can understand Uber has solved that problem for us in our heads. But sharing the accommodation, now this triggers another aspect of it. And especially for the female users that we will have. And you pointed out very, very, very correctly. So we address this by looking at each and every aspect of the ride sharing very, very carefully, and analyzing how we can make the journey more reliable for both of the users. So it's not only the female or male riders who will be concerned about the safety, it will be also the drivers. So for example, I do not want to share my ride with someone who I don't trust, and my car with someone who I don't trust, or nor the other person does. So there is a company called BlaBlaCars who are our very close competitor, and they have solved this. They haven't solved this issue because they do not verify every user that comes to their platform. So we start with the bottom up. So we start by onboarding every user by verifying their identity. But this can be done by providing their ID, their university they're associated with. This gives us a reliable platform where people, instead of traveling with a complete stranger, now they travel with the person who has a verified profile photo, so they are not catfishing you. They are associated with a reliable institute. And now you can understand, like for example, if a person who is from Coventry, now he is more comfortable with traveling with someone who is studying in Coventry as well. So this gives us as a reliable platform to begin with. But we don't stop there. Of course, the security concern continues to the trip itself. So now the platform itself provides the security of the trip by giving different features. Like for example, you can split the trip cost on the platform. So you don't have to pay a cash to have whoever you are traveling with. You split the exact amount on the platform, and if there are any issues following that, and we can quickly solve them because we already have the catalog of how your trip was managed, who was traveling with you, what they did wrong, what happened. So all of that combined gives us a very reliable platform where users feel more comfortable traveling rather than just a trip where you're sharing it with a stranger. So it's not sharing a trip with a stranger; it's sharing a trip with a person that you can trust.
Wow, absolutely love that. And as you said a moment ago, it doesn't stop there. When I was doing a bit of research on you, I also read that you're able to raise your first pre-seed investment of £50,000 by delivering groceries door to door throughout central London. Can you expand on that too, and what you're doing there?
Yes, another one of my favorite things to talk about, because it's a funny story, I would say.
Yeah.
Because who in the world raises 50,000 by delivering groceries?
Yeah.
So just for the context of the story, I will make it quick, but because it's a long story,
Yeah.
it expands up to I think 5 to 6 months, but I will make it quick. So just for the context, in the early days of Splittrip, was registered in 2021, we were bootstrapping, me and my friend, for the production of the app. However, I knew that for sure that raising funds was inevitable for a startup, and without funds you are not able to get into as many hands you want to, or as many people as you want to. However, being a person from a minority background, such as Pakistan, I did not have any network to begin with in the country. And I started talking with people online, messaging them on LinkedIn, just like I messaged you, Neil, and asking them for tips and advice in however they can help. But the problem with that was that I was not able to catch a lot of attention. Of course, a lot of people, for example, a lot of investors, they have a busy schedule, and it's really hard to get around those people. So one day I was with my friend from Pakistan in UK. His name is Umar, again, the same guy. And we were doing a night job where he was delivering packages door to door in central London. And I was on a drive with him just to give him company. And that clicked into my head that he's delivering to probably the high net worth of the UK, which is literally the central London of UK. And those people might be businessmen, businesswomen, advisors, investors that can really help me grow my business. So I brainstormed this idea with my friend, and I was like, what about like if I drop like a card or a pamphlet into their doorstep and tell them about their idea? I'm sure they will be excited about this opportunity, And he was like, we dropped the idea on the same night, literally, because we were like, yeah, we will deliver things, but they are not going to see them. It's very rare that a person looks at a card and sees, oh, this is an advertisement, and he's going to pursue it. So we dropped that idea straight up. But having that thought got me going into the mindset of approaching people rather than approaching them on LinkedIn, like approaching them physically and talking to them. So having this idea, I was traveling through London tubes one day, and I saw this ad of a Q-commerce grocery delivering application called Gorillas. And it was a funny name, so it got me curious, and I looked into the application, and surprisingly, they were not delivering in my area. And I was like, why is that so? Because I looked into the areas they deliver only in the poshest area of London. And I was like, okay, so I'm not in that stage yet, but they are delivering to the people that I might be interested in talking. So I quickly looked it up. They were hiring riders for their delivery application on a very small salary. And that got me curious, and the idea sparked in my head that why don't I go door to door, deliver to those people, and just for the split second, ask them if they are interested in knowing about what I'm doing on the side. And this is where it all started. I applied for the company, quickly got selected, and quickly got onboarded to one of the poshest areas in London, which is Chelsea and South Kensington. And I started doing deliveries to door to door. And for the first month, Neil, I was not able to speak to a single person. The reason was because I was a little bit nervous, a little bit not sure of myself if the people are friendly.
Yeah.
There are stories that people from New York and London are very grumpy. Don't look them in the eyes, and etc. Right? So I was looking at that, and to my surprise, I would say 99% of the people that I meet were very, very welcoming. And they were very generous in their approach. So for a month, I didn't talk to them, but I remember this one lady that I met, and she was an old age lady, and she was interested in knowing like how do I work and how my day was, and that got me interested. And I was like, from today on, I'm going to talk to every single person that I speak to about my application, because I could see people having interest in people and not being robots, basically.
Yeah.
And and just interested in people. So from that day on, I delivered over 1,000 doors, and I spoke to over 1,000 people, and literally, not figuratively, literally 1,000 people, and knocking on door to door and saying, "Hey, do you know anything about startups?" And that started with a smirk on their face, and they smile at you first, and they are curious, like, "What is this delivery guy talking about? A startup? Like, what, a delivery guy?" And again, to my surprise, out of 100 people that I speak to, 90% of them, they want to know what you're on about. And I love speaking about the startup. So I just give them an elevator pitch in 60 seconds. And out of those 90% of the people, 10%, they're so interested that they add you on LinkedIn. They start talking to you on LinkedIn. They invite you back for a coffee. They have an online meeting with you. So this was the beginning of, I would say, of my interest in raising funds like this, because I could see people giving me free advice. I have met at least 3 people in Forbes 30 and the 30 list. I have met countless of business advisors. I've met countless businessmen and women, some of the VC capital world. And this was the beginning of something good for me. And then that kept me going. I went over 1,000 deliveries. And one of them was Mr. Kevin Holmrack. He's a British MP from Tusk, and we literally met for once, and he was very interested in the application. So we added each other on LinkedIn, went on a few calls together, went on a coffee shop, and then pitched him the idea and how we are going to pursue it. And I think he saw the potential in the application, and he decided to invest. And that was one of the best days, I think, that I have spent in the UK, because that excitement and that feeling of achieving something was out of this world. And after a back and forth of around a month, then he and his friend invested in our company. That was £50,000, and we still have the £50,000, and now we are able to use that funds to build the platform that we always wanted. So yeah, a long story, but definitely with a lot of exciting things for me and a lot of lessons that I've learned along the way. So yeah, this is how we were able to raise £50,000 from delivering door to door in Chelsea.
And it's such an important and inspiring story to share as well, because I think if any of us switch on the TV, look at a newspaper or headline online, it will tell you those same stories, that people are grumpy in big cities. There's a lot of division in society, and it makes us all nervous and wary about talking to each other. But when you just meet people face to face, it's quite easy for those walls just to disappear and 2 people have a nice conversation. And you've seen that time and time again, right?
Beautifully put. Yes, exactly. So I have seen it over 1,000 times, literally. so yeah. And to my surprise, when I tell this story to people are always curious. Like, don't they just shut the door on your face? Literally, these are the comments that I got. Like, don't they just shut the door on your face? And believe me, Neil, I haven't met one person who has shut the door on my face. They're always curious about it. They either apologize, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry that I do not know anything about startups." Of course, there are people who are like doctors or in the fields who are not closely related to business, but or for example a teacher or something. But they're never rude to me. So that was like the eye opening that not every stereotype that you see, people think is absolutely true. Of course not. It's an eye opening for me, and I hope for people who are listening as well.
And last year, I think I should also highlight, you were one of 10 startups endorsed by Coventry University. Again, another exciting accomplishment. Can you tell me more about that and what that meant to you?
Yes, so we were one of the 10 startups that was endorsed by Coventry University for the startup idea of Splittrip. So I studied my master's degree from Coventry University, and of course, doing a business in the UK, you need endorsement by different trustable organizations and institutes. So I reached out to Coventry University, and during the pandemic, they had a surge of startup ideas coming to their platform. But fortunately, we were one of the 10 startups that got endorsed by Coventry University that year, and this means that we have access to their enterprise hub and to their student union, which helps us, have those initial conversation with the people of our target market, and get to tell them about our platform. So yeah, very exciting to be a part of Coventry University, and they finally endorsing us for the startup that we are working on.
Fantastic. And as you look back on your journey, and you've come such a long way, and it's incredibly inspirational what you've achieved. But I would say, if there's anybody listening at the very beginning of their journey, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned?
It's a very insightful question. But I won't say that I have had a long journey, to be honest. I would say that I'm literally at the start of it, and there are so many things that I need to learn. There are so many adventures that I have to pursue, and this is just the start of it, because we are not even in the explosion stage of the startup. So, but I would say that the biggest lesson that I have learned throughout this startup journey specifically is that people are really helpful when you know who to ask. In one sentence, that's what I can think. That people are so, for example, I will give you an example. I have reached out to a lot of people for things that normally cost, and they would do it for free for me. And reaching out to people who are like and I have noticed that people who are in the later stage of their careers tend to be more helpful than the younger generation. That is one of the things I noticed, which was like in my stereotypical mind, I was thinking that people who are more successful are less likely to help because they do not care about you, right?
Yeah.
But that was the flip side of me. So I have learned that people range from your wildest imagination. So having trust in have trust in that people, and try to talk to as many people as you can.
Love that. Great advice. And of course, what's next for Splittrip? There's so much going on. You spin so many plates, but spin so many different plates. But what's your big focus right now?
So Splittrip is, of course, we are beta testing the application on Android and iOS with a handful of friends and family, just to make sure that the platform is safe for other people. The verification process, as we have just spoke about, that is very important for us. So the next stage of Splittrip is getting out there and expanding Splittrip to the whole of UK and making this platform available for every single person that is going to travel or is planning to travel anywhere in the UK. And of course, that is the next step, but not the destination of Splittrip, I would say.
Awesome. And before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests a question or leave everyone living on an inspirational note. Now, bearing in mind, some of the biggest names in business, VC funding and tech have either been guests or listened to this podcast. Is there a person that you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, and why? Because he or she might just listen to this podcast, and it'd be great to, let's see if we can manifest a meeting and send it out to the universe. But who would you like to meet and why?
Yes. So another question, I would love to meet everyone on your podcast, because networking for me is a beautiful thing. But one of the guests you have was Gary Vee, and Gary Vee was one of the person that watching his videos that helped me to understand the hustle part of the business, of not giving up, the grit and the passion to just keep going. And that helped me knock on 1,000 doors, literally. And so I would love to have a chat with Gary one day and explain this idea to him and see what he has to say about this.
Fantastic. We'll see what we can do. We'll send that out into the universe. But before I let you go, for anyone listening wanting to find out more information about Splittrip, your journey, what you've been up to, and how they can get involved, what's the best starting point for everything?
Just join us on Splittrip. So you can join the platform by going on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and just searching Splittrip, and you will be able to see our early beta application on the platform. And join Splittrip and let us know your feedback. And if you have any questions, head on to splittrip.co.uk and ask us any question. And I will be more than happy to reply to any emails or any questions that I have.
Well, I think your story is so important to share, and I love that journey up to the summit of the mountain, the lessons you've learned along the way, and also for shattering a few myths that people are not interested in other people. They don't want to help each other. You've proved all that wrong, and people are actually, they have curious minds. They want to hear more. They want to learn. And
Absolutely.
It's just such a great story. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and share that with me today.
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. One last thing that I would say, that it is not the story of summiting the mountain. It's the story of the journey for now.
A huge thank you to Abdul for sharing his startup story and the journey of Splittrip, and how they were able to raise £50,000 by delivering food door to door to high net worth individuals and get endorsed by one of the top universities in the UK. It's an incredible story, it really is, and I can't thank him enough for coming on here and sharing that with me today. And remember, these are the stories that I love sharing on the podcast, so please come on here, share your origin story with me and how you're leveraging technology, and we'll beam that conversation to 165 countries. How does that sound? Well, if it sounds daunting, it isn't. Trust me, it's just you and me having a friendly chat and then sending it over to internet land. But send your questions, insights, experiences, pictures to come on the show over to me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. Get me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes if you want to slide into the DMs. And other than that, a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.